The sun was sinking low behind the dusty hills of Wyoming, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. The long road stretched endlessly, a lonely trail cutting through the open plains. A woman rode slowly on a tired mare, her clothes worn and her face shadowed beneath the wide brim of her hat. Her name was Clara Dawson, and she had been traveling for 3 days, alone, hungry, and with a single letter in her pocket that she had read 100 times. It was from her brother, Samuel. The words were brief. "Come quick, Clara. Pa's sick, I don't think he's got much time." But fate had played its cruel hand. By the time she reached the Dawson ranch, the house was silent, the windows dark, and a wooden cross stood fresh beside the cottonwood tree. She had come a day too late. Clara dismounted, her knees weak as she stepped closer to the grave. Her eyes blurred with tears as she fell to her knees and touched the dry soil. "I'm sorry, Pa," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I tried." The prairie wind answered her only with silence. The house looked smaller than she remembered, empty and hollow like her heart. Her brother was nowhere in sight, and she feared the loneliness would swallow her whole. She sat there until the stars appeared, shivering as the chill crept in. Then, from the distance, came the faint sound of hoofbeats. A man on horseback rode toward her, tall and rugged, the kind of cowboy that looked like he had wrestled with both life and the land. His hat was tilted low, and a rifle hung across his saddle. When he stopped in front of her, the dust rose around them in a soft cloud. "Ma'am," he said, his voice deep and calm, "you shouldn't be out here this late. Coyotes don't take kindly to strangers." Clara wiped her tears quickly, trying to stand. "This is my father's ranch," she replied quietly. "Or, it was." The cowboy looked toward the grave, his expression softening. "You must be Clara," he said. "Samuel told me you were comin'. I'm Luke Turner. Been helpin' your brother keep things together since your pa took ill." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind rustled the dry grass, and the world seemed to pause. Then Luke dismounted and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry you didn't make it in time," he said. "But you're here now, and maybe that's what matters." Clara swallowed hard. "Samuel, where is he?" Luke's eyes shifted away. "Went to town this morning for supplies. Should have been back by sundown. Guess he's runnin' late." They walked toward the small wooden house together. Inside, it smelled faintly of tobacco and coffee. Dust covered the shelves, and the old rocking chair creaked as the wind blew through the cracks in the wall. Luke lit a lantern and set it on the table, the flame flickering softly between them. Clara took off her gloves and stared at her father's worn Bible lying on the table. "He always kept it open," she murmured. Luke nodded, said it kept the house from feelin' empty. He made her some coffee, though it was bitter and burnt. She drank it anyway, her hands trembling. "I can't believe he's gone," she said quietly. "I thought I'd have one more chance to say goodbye." Luke leaned against the wall, watching her. "I lost my folks young too," he said. "There's never a right time to say goodbye. But maybe you can still make this place something he'd be proud of." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat on the porch, staring out at the moonlit plains. Luke joined her, his boots scuffing softly against the floorboards. "You think Samuel's all right?" she asked. "He's a good man," Luke said. "Tougher than he looks. He'll come ridin' home soon enough." There was a quiet peace between them, the kind that only the wide prairie could bring. The stars stretched endless above, and for a moment, Clara felt her heart ease. But morning brought trouble. Samuel didn't return. Luke saddled his horse at dawn. "I'll go look for him," he said. Clara insisted on coming along, but he shook his head. "You've ridden enough miles already. I'll find him." She watched him ride away, the rising sun casting a golden glow on his shoulders. Hours passed, then half a day. Clara fed the chickens, fixed the old fence, and tried not to think about what could go wrong. When she finally heard hoofbeats again, she ran outside. Luke was back, but he wasn't alone. Samuel rode beside him, his arm wrapped in a bandage. "Ran into some trouble with rustlers," Luke explained, helping Samuel down. "Took his supplies and roughed him up a bit. But he'll live." Clara's eyes filled again, but this time with relief. "Thank you," she whispered to Luke. "You saved him." Luke smiled slightly. "Just did what anyone would do." Days passed, and life slowly began to settle again. Luke stayed on, helping mend fences, tend cattle, and fix the roof that had long needed repair. Clara noticed how he worked, steady, quiet, and kind. He never asked for anything, yet always seemed to know what needed doing. Sometimes, when the evenings grew long, They'd sit outside watching the horizon together, saying little but feeling much. One afternoon, Clara found Luke standing by her father's grave, hat in hand. "He was a good man," Luke said softly. "Taught me how to rope when I was just a kid. Never forgot that." Clara looked at him, her eyes warm but sad. "He would have liked you," she said. Luke turned toward her then, the sunlight catching the faint scar on his cheek. "Maybe, but I think he'd like who you've become even more." Weeks turned into months. Samuel healed, and the ranch began to breathe again. The cattle were healthy, the fields alive, and laughter returned to the house. Clara often caught herself smiling for no reason, usually when Luke was near. One evening, after supper, Luke walked her out to the porch where the orange glow of sunset lit the sky. "You know," he said quietly, "when I first saw you that night, you looked like the loneliest soul in the world." She smiled faintly. "I was." He hesitated, then said, "Funny thing is, I thought you came too late that day. But now I realize." He looked at her, his eyes steady. "You came right on time, for me." Clara's breath caught, and the world seemed to slow around them. The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of wild sage and dust. For the first time in a long while, Clara felt like she belonged again, not just to a place, but to someone who understood the silence of the plains and the ache of the past. That night, as the stars burned bright over the Wyoming sky, Clara whispered a quiet prayer beside her father's grave. "Thank you," she said, "for bringing me home, just in time." Inside the house, Luke waited by the lantern, his eyes warm with the kind of peace only found after loss, after pain, after finding someone who was meant to stay. And though the wind howled across the open land, the Dawson Ranch no longer felt empty. It felt alive again, because love, like the morning sun, had finally come right on time.